I think that two similar people could still really struggle if they avoid conflict, they get defensive, they don't resist growth, they
Yeah.
communicate poorly.
What strengths do the differences bring? Together, you are stronger. Remind yourselves of that.
Yeah.
God put you together for a purpose. Your strengths complement one another. Your weaknesses offset one another. Hey, thanks for checking out the episode. We are on to a topic that you and I talked about earlier this week around can two different people have a healthy marriage?
Yep.
Kind of talking about personality differences, maybe.
Yeah. How do you handle your differences in your marriage? That's really important.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, when you get married, most people do not marry someone who has the same strengths and weaknesses. They're typically like where you're strong, I might be weak, where I'm strong, you might be weak, and then we might have similar strengths and similar weaknesses, but you're never going to be married to the same person. So dealing with differences is an inevitable part of marriage. So how do you do that? That's kind of what we're trying to talk about here. Because I think a lot of people don't do a good job with that.
Yeah. One, don't you think like one of I was thinking about this morning before we even recorded, that one of the challenges that's common in marriage is that people get married hoping they can change the parts that they don't like, right? I mean, seriously, like this is a huge problem. And it's just been time tested that you cannot change your spouse, or they're going to change just like you're going to change, but it's not going to be the type of change that you were expecting, right? So,
well, and I feel like I've said that before in a previous episode. When you marry someone, you should just assume this is who I'm getting and like be okay with who they are now.
Yeah.
Yes, throughout our lives, we should be changing, we should be improving. That's why we've talked about the value of self-awareness and a willingness to improve in areas that need to improve. But even with differences, it's not just negative things like bad habits that are different or whatever. It's the way God created you. So finding a balance between that's just the way I am on bad habits, because that's not true. But there are things that are like, that's the way I am. That is a real thing.
Yeah.
So understanding what those things are is really important, and learning how to value and appreciate differences versus try to make your partner become you and see the world and respond to things in life the same way that you do.
Yeah.
This has been big for us. Let's talk about compatibility real quick. It is very important to be compatible. But being compatible does not mean that you are the same.
Right.
It does not mean that you're not different in a lot of ways, and that you're not going to have to figure out those differences.
Right.
So,
well, and I think the underlying point there would be that there's kind of a misconception that if people are similar, they make better partners romantically in terms of like building a life together. That's actually not the case. And I feel like you said something from obviously like your psychology and therapy background to me years ago that stuck with me, which was like similarities are best for friendships.
I did read
and
that.
then differences actually make stronger like life partners.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's backed by research.
Because in friendship, if you think about it, you're just hanging out, you're enjoying each other. You're not really the goal of your friendship with like just a regular friend is not like tackling life's challenges together, raising kids, figuring out, making decisions. You're just enjoying being together. And so I think when it comes to dealing with life, making each other better, supporting each other, raising your kids, you need to balance each other out. I don't know. I don't remember where I read about that, but I absolutely did. You're right.
Yeah.
So what does matter though is that you have shared values, that you have mutual respect, and that you're committed. Like those things are critical. I do personally believe, and I know you agree, that when you meet someone, you should really enjoy them and feel like there's compatibility before you get married. Like you should have some common interests. You should have similar life goals.
Right.
That's really going to mess you up if you marry someone who has like completely different values than you, different way that they want their life to go.
Right.
So like that's
a good point. So we're talking more about the emphasis would be for this episode is less on personality trait similarities and differences and more, well, personality differences is kind of like the crux of what we're going to get to, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing.
But the foundational things to the point you're making should be similar.
Yes.
Value system. We would, as followers of Christ, like we would say, you got to be on the same page from a faith perspective. And by the way, like quick quick comment there, like that's biblically accurate too.
Yeah.
Like God's word is very clear on
Being yoked
being
Yeah.
uniform together in terms of your faith in God. So
That's compatibility.
yeah,
Like you're
yeah,
compatible, not the same.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good.
Mhm, I love that. Again, like you said, you have similar goals.
Hmm.
You have shared values. You're both committed to growing.
Hmm.
Like that's important.
Yeah,
And you develop healthy skills for the relationship.
yeah. I like that.
Whereas on the other, compatibility doesn't mean that you have the same personality, the exact same interests, the same communication style.
Yeah,
The way you view things can be completely different. But if you really think about it, that's God's beautiful design of like, I'm going to put you with someone who's where you're weak, they're really
yeah,
strong,
yeah,
which is great if we can figure out how to deal with it,
yeah.
how to do it right. It can be a really amazing thing.
Right. Like to me, one of the maybe intangible goals of marriage is that you together can do more. And obviously, like for God, for the kingdom,
Mhm.
you can do more together and be more together than you ever could individually. And I think that's like to the point you're kind of
That's
making.
awesome.
The strengths and weaknesses should almost like complement one another, right? Like if you
Mhm.
think about your marriage as a team, you could never build like if you're thinking about a football team, if everyone played the same position
That's
and
good.
had the same skills, like you wouldn't win very many games. But
Yeah.
what makes a football team successful or any sport for that matter is the skills build on one another,
Yeah.
not compete with one another, not, be at odds with one another, but they're really like, you make me better, I make you better. Like that's how a
Yeah.
marriage should
We partner.
be. That's compatibility to me. Like that's
I
what that
love that.
means to me.
So, how do you deal with it? Because often in life, and we've seen this ourselves, it can get very frustrating dealing with your spouse's differences,
Mhm.
don't you think? Like, what do you think are
I
what
I
comes to
do think
your mind when you think of our differences for our listeners? I can handle it because we've worked on this area.
yeah, I mean, I think some things that just immediately jump off to me is like you are much more of an emotional person, number one. But number
True.
two, even where what tangibly where that's played out is like in decision making. Like I am definitely more objective, logical. I'm gonna even if I do have an emotional response, because some of you out there don't deceive yourself that you're not emotional. We're all emotional, it's just in the different ways. So I might emotionally have a reaction of like what I want to do, what I want to say, how I want to address a certain situation, but my personality is more like I'm going to take a step back and think things through, whereas you're not. And I think that's the one area, and that's not good or bad, by the way.
Right. I'll
I
have
think.
that emotional response.
Mhm.
And then later I'm like, okay, now that I've gotten that out of the way,
Right,
let's
right,
think about
right.
this. And you've
Yeah.
helped me overcome.
Hmm.
Where now here's the thing that could go wrong with that. If I have an emotional response and you get angry and frustrated with it, and you don't have any understanding because you believe that I should react just like you.
Right.
Whereas this is the way that I was made to be more sensitive, more emotional, more reactive. I just have had to learn with
Hmm.
your help how to stop, how to calm down, and how to think
Yeah.
when I'm emotional. Don't you
Yeah.
agree
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, we could spend an hour here talking about like the differences because we are very different to the
Hmm.
point you're making. A couple thoughts that I have is like we're unified on the things that matter, like
Yep.
you were saying earlier, very much so in the way we raise our kids, what's important to us, our faith, the love we have for one another, the love we have for Christ, like a whole host of things, the way we want to make a difference in the world, or in this case in marriages. It's the shared value system that we have that makes us the most compatible.
Mhm.
And then I think we kind of sharpen each other on
Yep.
the edges. Like you've helped, I'll kind of pay you a compliment back for what you just said. Like you've helped me take a little bit of the edge off, even with our kids, delivery for is what I mean. Like, so I might want to just come right out and say the thing and be very direct about it. And I, for the longest time, would think like, well, I'm just being honest. I mean, what's the problem? I would just save a lot of time if I, got rid of all the fluff and just said delivered the message. That's just one example where,
You mean I've helped you be more
yeah. So you're
sensitive,
you're
more
telling
thoughtful?
right. So you're saying that, I've kind of brought some things to you in terms of like thinking logically, calming down first, whatever. But similarly, like you've helped me like, okay, you can't just deliver the message that way, especially to an 8-year-old girl, for example, or
Yeah.
one of our daughters. So you have to, and you're right.
And I think like just some examples that we have here, like introvert, extrovert. Okay. Planner versus spontaneous.
I love these, by the way. I think it's so true.
So true. And I even think a lot of our like emotional versus analytical,
Yeah.
we already talked about that. I think introvert, we can both kind of be either or.
Mhm.
I think we're
For
kind
sure.
of compatible in that way.
Yeah.
Neither of us is like super extroverted and neither of us is super introverted. We're
Mhm.
kind of like in the middle.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Which is helpful. But
Mhm.
how would an introvert extrovert deal with that? Like the difference.
Mm.
People watching who are like, I'm totally an
For
extrovert,
sure.
he's totally an introvert, or vice versa.
And I think we've seen that. We've had a lot of friends over the years that have been like, wow, he is like high extrovert, like needs to be around people, needs to be having lots of conversations at the same time, like needs to be included in things. And maybe his wife is more reserved. And it, by the way, could be completely flip
Yeah.
flopped. I think for me, what comes out, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this too, is where are you striking the balance? Like one of you cannot always get your way. You cannot always like stay in on Friday nights. And meanwhile, like your wife is like dying. Can we go out? Can we do a couple's date with some friends? Can we go to the New Year's Eve party? Can we, that's manipulative and that will eventually like turn into a
Yeah.
problem down the road because one of you is going to realize like, hey, I'm squandering, years of my
Yeah.
life just staying in and not really making friendships and getting out there. So I think it's balance. And then similarly, just to play both sides, I don't think the person that's the extrovert is always like dragging along their spouse. You can't just pull that person along every time.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I'm dying for a night in with you on the
Oh,
couch with takeout.
hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
it's you gotta find that balance.
And I
So
think that's where when you respect someone's difference, it helps you to not build resentment or to think, well, they're wrong. Something's wrong with them.
mhm,
Because I think it can easily turn to, well, the way I think and feel and do things is right. And they're kind of messed up and they need to come to
right,
my side.
right.
That will crush your marriage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to be the same, but you can say, hey, I respect that she's like that.
Mm,
And I'm going to, I'm going to balance it out and I'm
mhm.
going to go out with her and we're going
Yeah.
to go do those things.
Yeah.
And then she's going to come and stay in with me
Right.
also. So just making a good balance is to your point.
Yeah, and I had a couple thoughts on this. By the way, this list is incredible. Like you've got high energy versus calm, talkative versus quiet. I mean, then the list could be a lot longer than this too, by the way. These are just a few things that
Yeah.
bubbled up. I love what we're talking about because we're obviously on the same page about this with
Mhm.
compromise and finding that middle ground. I was thinking as you were talking there for a minute, there's the thought of like probably a lot of these traits have not changed.
Mm.
So I would make the case of like to the spouse that's frustrated, like you kind of knew what you're getting into. However, as I was thinking about that, I caught myself because I actually do think some of these things can change. I do think, like, let's look at planner and spontaneous. If you're in 10, 20 years into your marriage and you look back and say, like, well, he wasn't always like that. We used to just like pack the bags on Friday after work and like jet out of town.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're not, like people change, like your
Yeah.
habits and your interests change. So I do think it's a fair point, maybe to validate people out there, maybe who are feeling frustration. It is entirely possible that like little personality
Mm.
traits and even bigger than personality traits, the way people are can change over
Mm.
time. So I think maybe it just, my point is, I guess it all points back to that compromise. And I think
Yeah.
having discussion about it
Respect.
too, and respect. Yeah.
And that willingness to give up the idea that you should be like me.
Yes.
And I'll just share that, like with when you mentioned talkative versus quiet.
Mm.
I don't know if anyone would guess which is which, but but they might not see that here on this podcast, but I'm very talkative. I want to talk about everything.
Mm.
And this just happened 2 days ago.
Between us, though.
Yeah. When something's wrong, whether it's between us or just for you in general,
Mm.
you get more quiet.
Mhm.
And I, in the beginning, thought like the world was ending if you got quiet.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
what's wrong? What's wrong? Why aren't you talking? What's the matter? What?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. You've had to learn to speak when you don't feel like it, because
Mhm.
that's more your nature. And I've had to learn to chill out, to let you think
Mhm.
and give you time.
Yeah.
And I have had to respect and accept that you don't need to talk as much as me.
Mhm.
You do need to talk. So that's where your weaknesses can take you to a bad place if you're not careful, if
Yeah,
you don't
for
compromise,
sure.
because that could result in you just never saying anything,
Right.
which would not be good for our marriage or
Mhm.
connection. So I've learned to respect that you don't need to talk as much as me.
Yeah.
And you've learned, okay, I do need to share and I do
Right.
need to be open.
Right.
And that goes to like the emotional reactivity too. Like sometimes I'm more upset about something that happened to you
Mm,
than you are.
most of
That
the
used
time.
to get on your nerves.
Yeah.
You're more upset this happened to me. It's like, well, I'm just more like
Yeah.
emotional and
Yeah.
like passionate. I get more like
Yeah,
intense
right. And that does, I would even confess, like that does lead us into conflict sometimes. Like
occasionally. Yeah.
we'd be lying to you listeners if we didn't say that. Like the disposition of personalities, to be very clear on this topic, like, yes, you will have conflict because you're two human beings trying to
Yep.
navigate like a complex life together and juggling work schedules and a house and kids and finances and your health and all these different things. You're trying to go through that together. That personality differences. I love that
Yeah.
you're talking about this because yes,
Well,
I've
go ahead.
kind of gone through some things recently and my response is like, I'm going to handle my business. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to be really quiet and I don't really need to talk about it because I don't see the benefit of verbalizing things that are upsetting me. If I'm hurting you in the process, number one, that's not my intention. Number two, like I need to kind of get over my own internal desires to the point of
Mhm.
compromise. And I'm outing myself on here, fellas, but I got to kind of humble myself a little bit and say, like, hey, bud, that's great that you kind of want to keep it all to yourself and maybe like
Mhm.
go deal with your things on your own and then come back in to the game. But
That doesn't really.
if
So,
I'm hurting you in the
yeah.
process and we're not connecting and you're feeling like I don't even know what's wrong. I don't know if I did something. I don't know if he's upset with something I did. I don't know if he values me in terms of
Yeah.
trusting me with what's going on with him. I think that's where just one
Yeah.
example and
Yeah.
men, husbands, if you can relate to that. But
Well, and how can
yeah,
I be there for you if you don't tell me what's going
right.
on? And I think one and you're moving us into the next thing really well
Mhm.
because how why do differences cause conflict? It's not always the difference itself. It's what you perceive that difference means. So like you being quiet, that could make me, if I'm interpreting it wrong versus finding out, which we'll get to,
Yeah,
think you just don't care. And then if
yeah.
I'm talking, you might perceive it as you're controlling. You want to
Hmm.
control. Whereas the truth is, you're just a very much an analytical processor. You're thinking. Maybe you're quiet because you just feel like you don't, it's not necessary. I know that you've said that before. Like, oh, I don't need to say things if it's not necessary. And then I'm not trying to control. I just want to be a part of your world. I
Right.
want to support you. I want to know. I'm a helper. I want to
Hmm.
care and I want to
Hmm.
like encourage you.
And you're a therapist.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah. I wanna give you
So
the
if there's a
treatment you need.
problem.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But
No, you're
it's
right.
like,
You're right.
that's not so,
Hmm.
again, like, you might think one partner needs a little bit of alone time or space because maybe they're more of an introvert.
Hmm.
That could lead the extrovert partner who's always wanting to be with you to think, "You're rejecting me.
Yeah.
You don't wanna be with me."
Right.
Now, of course, if that's all the time, there's a big problem, but if
Hmm.
it's like, "Hey, sometimes I just need to be alone. I
Hmm.
just like alone time."
Yeah.
You gotta respect that
Yeah.
and find a way to be okay with it
Yeah.
and not sit and stew,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And so assuming things, it causes issues.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like the list here. Like if you're organized, the misconception your spouse could have,
Mhm.
could being the operative word here, is that you're controlling. If you're needing space, and like we were
Mhm.
just talking about, you've dealt with this with me. If one partner needs space, the other one receives it as, well, I'm being rejected. So those assumptions, I
Mhm.
think, like
Mhm.
create distance.
Yeah. And that makes me
So
think back to like the planning versus the spontaneous. Cause I think like when we, let's say when we go on a trip, you like to plan our adventures, let's
mm-hmm,
say. Like we
hmm,
go here and we can do this and here's the restaurants. Whereas I'm more like, oh, I just want to get there. I just
hmm,
want to be there and I want to just whatever we do and we'll just which has been detrimental for me at times.
hmm,
Because then we don't have anything planned and then now we're scrambling to like figure out what to do or where to go or we don't
yeah,
have the reservation that we needed to have. So I've learned to value and not get annoyed because I
mhm,
think that's key. People get annoyed with their partner's differences and then they're not very loving.
yeah,
So I,
it's true.
although I'm not like you, because you might misinterpret that, oh, you don't care about planning. It's
Hmm.
just not the way my brain works. But I have learned to love and value
Yeah.
how you plan.
Hmm.
And I even think we were just somewhere where we were seeing this waterfall and
Hmm.
we had to have a reservation for a time slot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you, because of your planning, we had it. And there were so many people standing around like, wait, what do we need? shoot, and they're
Yeah.
getting back in their cars leaving. And I remember saying to you, I love
Yeah.
how you knew this. Like I can really rely on you to like plan and know
Mhm.
and be ready.
Mhm.
So I've
Yeah.
learned over the years, like I love that. And you've learned to not get upset that I don't do it,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
I don't plan. Like
Mhm.
I've had to work on that. But I think my perspective has always been with strengths and weaknesses, even therapeutically, you really should focus most on your strengths and
Mhm.
really improving them,
Mhm.
strengthening them, using them in your life. But then with your weaknesses, it's like, how can I do better with this?
Yeah.
I'm not going to make that my priority because then that's not my strength.
Yeah.
That's just a perspective that I
Mhm.
have, but I need to manage it and I
Mhm.
need to make sure it's not
Mhm.
messing up my life, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Well, don't you think too, the root of it is like understanding. If your spouse is going through something and maybe your personality traits or disposition to the points we were making earlier, the examples we gave, it doesn't matter if you
Yeah.
would react that way. What matters is that your partner is reacting that way. And if you want understanding from them of your disposition, then you need to similarly like
Yeah.
react in an understanding way back.
Yeah. I
I
like
think
that.
that's what cultivates, like, that's what builds connection. That's what builds that closeness is
Mhm,
like, hey, I respect where you're coming from, whether I agree or not.
mhm.
I think that's important to say because
Yep.
you and
Respect.
I have talked about that a
100%.
lot. Respect doesn't mean you agree.
Yep.
Respect means compromise. It means,
Mhm,
hey, I get where you're coming from. It means, hey, I love you and like let's figure this out together, or I'll give you space, or let's talk about it, whatever the situation
mhm.
is. But I think that's like paramount. You have to
Yeah.
be understanding of each other
Mhm.
and give each other that grace and mercy and like space to talk and work through your differences.
I love that. I mean, and on another note, being similar does not mean that you're automatically going to be healthy.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that two similar people could still really struggle if they avoid conflict, they get defensive, they resist growth, they
Yeah.
communicate poorly. So it's not like as long as we have everything in common, we're good.
Right.
Because I think some people might believe that.
Right. Well, and I'll give an extreme example. We've had people in our lives, like all of you have that are listening, where it's like, oh man, he's type A or she's type A. But it's like, can you imagine if you put two high energy type A people together that maybe have like some OCD tendencies? I mean,
That would
think about
be
that. Pause and just think about that as we're talking in this episode. Could there be a more obvious example of, yeah, now that you put it that way, similarities would
Mhm,
not work. And then on the other side, you could have people that are incompatible for the opposite reasons of that. So I think like
mhm.
accepting personality, I guess to move on, you can comment on this then, like how different couples thrive or can thrive. I think
Yeah.
that's the operative word. Like they can is accepting their
Mhm.
differences, learning from their differences, maybe even like developing a little bit like we shared, Jamie and I shared earlier, like our own styles like
Yeah.
have changed thanks to you sharpening me, me sharpening
Mhm.
you. Focus on shared values, assuming positive intent. I think
That's where
that's a
you
big one.
overcome the assumptions
Yes.
and just being curious, learning, okay, how are we different?
Hmm.
Instead of just getting frustrated. We talked about this recently, but take some personality tests
Hmm.
just for fun. I'm not big on like let them define you and all of that, but just the Myers-Briggs is one
Yeah.
that I like a lot.
Yep.
And then when you see that type it kind of matches you with, read about it and talk about it. And then it helps you understand more like, oh,
Right.
that's why when this happens, you react this way.
That's a great.
Or that's why you want to do this when I kind of like don't understand why,
Yeah.
and you can learn to love and respect it.
Mm.
I even was thinking over the last 14, 15 years how many times I've said, "Oh my gosh, can you imagine if you were just like me, how this would
Yeah.
go?" And you've said the same thing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't be what it is.
Yep.
Like even highly emotional.
Hmm.
I think a lot of emotional people want to find someone as emotional as them in theory. They think, "Oh, we'll go so deep and we'll connect." It's not
It's
the
not going to be what
best
you think.
recipe because
Right.
when there's all that emotion, you help calm me down.
Yeah.
And when you're super logical, I bring emotion into it.
Right.
Like, hey, be more
Empathy too.
sensitive. You need to
You're
be
more
more
empathetic.
empathetic. You need to
Yeah.
think more
100%.
about how these people feel. Like,
Yeah.
hey, if you say it like that, it's not going to go well because somebody's going to take it this way. And you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that.
Right.
So if you were as emotional as me or I was as logical as you, that wouldn't be as beautiful as what we have
Yeah.
is.
No,
And
I
I think
totally agree.
I really do believe God designs it that way.
Hmm.
And so
Ideally, the ideal would
ideally,
be
yeah,
that. Yeah.
the quicker you can learn, and even like you're super organized. I'm very clean, but I'm not as organized. Like I
Hmm.
struggle with, I don't care if something goes back in the same place as long as
Hmm.
it's away. Like
Hmm.
I'll put it wherever. And you're like, this goes here and it's going to go here.
Right.
well, maybe in the beginning that could annoy me at times, but I've just learned that that's how he is. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like me, and I don't have to be like you.
Right. Right.
And when you really love someone and
Striking the balance.
yeah,
That's
it's
good. Yeah.
so right away, number one, anyone listening, get rid of the mindset that my partner should be like me and should respond to life like I do. Just stop
Good.
that, because that's crushing your partner and it's crushing your marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I like to hear that you say, are they personality differences or are they character issues?
Yep.
And I think assumptions, to the point you were just making,
Mhm.
the assumptive mindset would say, like, well, these are character issues. Like, these are major flaws in my husband's character or my wife's disposition or whatever. Get rid of that. Analyze it, because you could be right.
Yep.
Maybe talk about it if you need to. But I think
Because character issues and bad habits should be confronted, they
address.
should
Yeah.
be addressed, and they should change.
Agree.
So that is important to
Yep.
identify.
Yep. I think what strengths do the differences bring? We've like hit this one
Yep.
head on. Like, together you are stronger. Remind yourselves of that.
Yep.
Like, have some positive conversations or thoughts around this topic. You are better together. God put you together for a purpose. Your strengths complement one another. Your weaknesses offset one another. So what just respect in that area. I think grounding on what values, what your value system is, foundationally what's most important in your marriage to be successful. I think those are the things that are important.
And just asking yourself that question, am I trying to change my spouse or understand who they are in a deeper way?
Yeah.
Because that's more important.
Mhm.
How can I figure out what this is about? How can I understand why he does things the way he does them and value and respect it in a new way? And so I would say, like, in closing, just remembering that differences don't determine whether you can have a healthy marriage. It's more about how you respect and value those differences. And ask yourself, we're huge on self awareness. Is there a character flaw that I am telling myself that's the way I am? Because that's got to go.
Yeah.
Because that is such a negative thing to say, oh, well, that's how I am. Well, if that's how you are, but that's a dishonoring thing to God and that's not healthy for you or your marriage, that's not just how you are.
gotta
That's
get rid of
something
it.
that can and should change.
Yeah.
And then don't make your goal to make your partner like you. So get rid of that idea. Ask yourself, what are the differences in my partner that bother me the most? Because those are probably the ones that you struggle to respect, understand, and appreciate. So learn, what do I need to do differently to value and appreciate this? How does, and even asking the question, how does that difference in him benefit my life?
Really good point. Think about these things that Jamie just mentioned. Talk about it together. I would even say talk about where your strengths are that you respect from one another off the top, and then maybe get into like, hey, here's some things that I'm struggling to understand. Maybe that's the way you word it. Have a conversation about it. But again, just anchor on the foundational principles. That's really the takeaway for today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. We talk about all things marriage on this podcast in the attempt that it will get your marriage not just to survive, but really that thriving mentality. So hope you have a great week.